Let me see if I can get it right this time. So welcome to Chicken Dude Stuff Podcast. How was that? Did I get it right?
Whitney will be impressed.
Matt and Buffy Payne are a couple driven by purpose. Through their nonprofit, Outer Circle Foundation, and faith-based organizations like Few and Dudes, their mission is clear: to spark positive change, empower others, and build a better world, one connection at a time. She is Chick. He is Dude. Welcome to the Chicken Dude Stuff Podcast.
I get it wrong, Travis, all the time. I always call it Chicken Dude and Stuff. And she'll look at me and go, dude, you don't even know the name of our own podcast. So, so everyone, we have Travis Ward with us today. We at Outer Circle got to know Travis, about over a year ago. I would guess.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, somewhere around in there. So we'll go through that story. But Travis, thanks so much for taking the time and being with us today. We really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here, brother.
So let's start with, as those that are listening are going to hear, and your voice is a little bit soft and a little bit weak. Let's go through a little bit of just kind of what happened and why that is, and then we'll dive into the podcast. But let's fill them in on that right quick.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll touch on it much deeper here in the interview, but basically, I had a substance abuse issue, which ties into many things that were going at the time. When I met you guys, I think November 23, and just about 3 weeks before we met, I tried to get sober on my own and not understanding the withdrawal symptoms. And I'm fortunate that my girlfriend found me when I was hallucinating. But by the time she got me to the hospital, I was dying from withdrawal symptoms and ultimately had to be intubated. And when that happened, damaged my windpipe and paralyzed my vocal cords. So I had a tracheostomy for a year. And God helped me work so hard physically that I'm so grateful today to be without it. That took me for surgery, and my voice is so much stronger since then. And yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. That's what we've got going. There's potential to help going forward, but yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on it deeper.
Yeah,
as we get into the story.
It is. I mean, compared to way back when, right? When you have to get right next to you to hear you. So tell me that one more time. The hands over fist better than that. So Travis, you spent, almost 16 years in the Army.
Yes.
Went in as an enlisted trooper and worked your way up to staff sergeant, then got commissioned, and ultimately, medicaled out in 2015. But walk us through kind of growing up. Did you come from a military family? What prompted you to get in the military? How did that work? Kind of give us the backstory of who Travis is.
So I grew up in Louisiana, bounced around a lot, broken home, just lived with one parent for 6 months, a year. Other one, parents is getting remarried multiple times, moving. So it was kind of a chaotic childhood. Mm-hmm. But I grew up 80s watching Sylvester Stallone. I loved Rambo. And I did, even as a young kid, I wanted to be in the military. And I got real close to enlisting when I was 17 and was afraid if I didn't go to college to get my bachelor's degree, that I would never do it. Mm-hmm. So I went ahead and went to college. And when I graduated, about 2 weeks later, I went and enlisted. My mother wasn't happy, but I didn't tell her actually. My drills, the first 24 hours at basic, I was at Benning. Drill sergeants make you call home or make you call somebody. Mm-hmm. And I said, drill sergeant, I'm good. I don't need to call anybody. and I can't repeat what he said, but I had to call somebody. So that's when I called and told her. But within 2 years or so, there were pictures of Sergeant Ward all over her house. She came around. So, and I always say, I only joined to do my 4 years and figured I would go on. But in the infantry, I found my people, and God got me there, and it was such a blessing. Best decision I ever made for my personal and professional life. Absolutely loved it. Didn't want to get out. Had no plans to. That's how much I loved it.
So when you went in, what did you enter the military as? What job did you do when you were an enlisted guy?
I was 11 Bravo infantryman.
Okay.
Went straight to airborne school so I could be light. In the Army, you don't want, in the infantry, you don't want to be mech. So, and that's how it started. And great career with some really, really tremendous commanders. So many mentors. Like I said, it was what I was looking for and didn't know that's what I needed. It was great.
And what was the transition like from the enlisted side to the officer side?
I had toyed with it for a long time because I kept telling myself, nah, this is good. I'll get out. I don't want a career. And I went back and forth. And actually, I went to OCS in 2007, 2008. And I had a mentor, it was a sergeant major, and he stayed on me. And I don't know if you remember, we were going through stop loss. So I actually had planned to ETS and go back and finish my master's. But I was stop lost for another tour.
Mm-hmm.
So Sergeant Major pulled me in, and I can't say exactly what he said, but he told me stop being dumb. He said, and stop underachieving.
Yeah.
And so I submitted my back. I went to the S1. She helped me get my packet together. 6 months later, I was in OCS.
Gotta love those sergeant majors, man. They'll just pull you in and tell you the way it is.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. What led up to the medical retirement? What happened with that when it was time to go? How did that transpire?
I was in an IED downrange. And it was a mad cow. And fortunately, I survived. Many didn't.
Yep.
I ended up having to have 2 back surgeries and 3 foot surgeries, and had a TBI, so I spent some time in the program at Eisenhower Medical. And that's part of my story as well. As I knew when you have a surgery, you get a medical profile, and if that profile extends upon X amount of days, you automatically face a med board. So I knew physically I needed more, but I was so afraid of facing that med board that I didn't get the help, the medical care I needed. I kept hiding that. And again, that was one of the things that would lead to me drinking, self-medicating, just to drink and kill that pain and be able to sleep. And at the same time, that's when the symptoms of post-traumatic stress started developing in my life. And I did not understand the nightmares, waking up, soaking wet, screaming, scaring my children. I started having panic attacks out of nowhere. And my first one, I actually did go to the urgent care clinic because I was afraid I was having a heart attack. Again, didn't understand what was happening. I felt like I was losing my mind. and was so afraid to tell anybody, keeping that inside. Again, self-medicating with alcohol for those symptoms as well.
You go in front of the review board and you get medically retired. Do you come back to Georgia at that time, or did you stay where you got medically retired? What happened when you got out?
So it happens so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The process is frightening how quick it happens. And at the time I was married, one child was 8, the other would have been 13. So young children, and I was in a very bad marriage that was going south further and further. It was in a spiral. When that happened, I lived in South Carolina, stationed there, and I was the breadwinner, and I had such fear. It was such I mean, everything's on me, and I started having these fears. Oh my God, we're gonna be homeless. We're not gonna have food. It's just crazy fear driving everything. So I went to military recruiting, civilian agency recruiting officers retiring, and I went to a fair, interviewed for 5 jobs, got offered 4, and I took the highest paying one, which brought me back to Georgia. I had I didn't care what it was. It was nothing. I was not considering my needs, my wants, or what I would like to do. It was just what pays the most, because I've got to protect and support my family.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's funny you mentioned that, because my records went in front of the review board in January. March, I was standing out of the gate. Mine was 2 months. And the military is relatively slow in everything until it got to that. And then it was like light speed, right? So you get out, relationships not so well. You have these buildup of symptoms that you probably, if you were like me, didn't really understand things. You're hearing a little bit about PTSD, but you're like, that's for those guys. It's not really for me. How did that transpire for you? Because I think you were in that same boat, right? Is not really understanding what was going on, but knowing something was not right.
Absolutely. That's I had no understanding of the symptoms of PTSD. I had I guess I had preconceived notions that people would freak out and be in the fetal position, doing bizarre things. It didn't occur to me, no, my feelings were changing. The overwhelming and this pervasive anxiety about everything. I've never had that before. I didn't understand. I didn't understand all these new fears of things that pose no threat to me. And I ultimately did start seeking treatment, but it was for anxiety, not post-traumatic stress. So that was and like I told you, that by that point, I was self-medicating with alcohol. That makes the process even more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, all I did was get medicine, given me SSRIs, benzodiazepines, things to sleep. And as my symptoms would continue to get worse, I just got more and more medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So just treated the symptoms, did no work to work through, and I didn't even understand that. Yeah, having to do that work to process all the forgiveness, all the acceptance and understanding it takes so you don't need the medication. But it's a difficult process even when you understand you have to do it. It's time consuming. And when you are working 80 hours a week, putting yourself last, not understanding if I don't get well, I have nothing. The people that depend on me and love me, I cannot be what they need if I put me last.
Yeah.
And that was, again, hard at it. Took a heck of a beating to learn that, Mom. But it goes back to not understanding.
Yeah. So we spoke about this earlier. 2018, you had an attempt with your life for a suicide attempt. Had you sought counseling at that point in time, or were you under the care of anyone, or did that catapult you to get care after that? Kind of, how does that work for you in that timeline of things?
I began having suicidal ideations. And as the anxiety grew, there was a direct correlation. And I got to a point where I just did not want to live, not necessarily kill myself. But I was at that point for quite a while. And then ultimately in 2018, my personal life was just bottomed out. My professional life, I was doing well, but I worked 7 days a week. That's all I did. I wasn't treating I was doing zero work, none. Taking medicine, drinking and not telling anyone. So that's what I had going, and it's a spiral. And it hit me one day. And it put me at peace when I had the thought of suicide. The anxiety subsided. I was joking and laughing. I had planned this for about 2 weeks. My ex and my children were going to a family reunion for the week of July 4th in 2018. And I came up with a plan. And for about a week or so, I was really at peace like I hadn't been in years. Ultimately, I obviously failed. And God put me through that and allowed me to survive so I can share that with others and grow through my process, which prompted me to start reaching out for counseling. And that in of itself was a struggle. I think, Matt, you'll understand when the counselor's asking me about the situations, he would ask me, how do you feel about that? And I couldn't understand that. I'm like, what do you mean? Something happened that made me angry, I was angry. It made me happy, I was happy. There was nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
It was laugh or punch it in the face. There was no middle ground. So that was a real struggle. And again, not understanding to put myself in my needs first. I would go to counseling for a couple of weeks, skip some appointments, start up again. I wasn't giving it the effort it needed. Again, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not being able to understand emotions that you need, that you do feel and don't recognize.
Yep. So at this time, where were you in your faith journey? Like, because I know you were pretty involved with faith. And then if you're anything like me, it kind of, you wane away and kind of come in on yourself and rely on yourself. And you almost like detach from everything. Were you that same way, or did it impact you a little differently? What was your faith journey like during this?
Um, so I really struggled. I grew up, we believed in God. I went to church some, but it wasn't part of my family. It wasn't talked about in my household growing up. So I had a belief in God, but no understanding, no relationship. And then the journey of combat and seeing what happens and seeing collateral damage to children. I struggled a lot with anger, and I toyed with, if I believe in God, I'm angry at God. And that distance, that numb feeling keeps you disconnected, not only with your faith, but with people in your life. You can't connect at all. It was really through my journey to get sober is what helped me connect with God. I had a mentor that I was working with, and I was reading, was praying, and I couldn't feel that spiritual connection. And it's frustrating to want that relationship and not being able to attain it. And that was a couple of years. And then after everything with the tracheostomy, I was just further and further in this downward spiral. And I ultimately, because I didn't want to live, even when I wasn't suicidal, I didn't want to live. Through my journey to get sober, I realized that life was worth living. And that was a process. It was having hope that I could be happy and enjoy this life. And I have blessings. I have beautiful children I love. I'm in a relationship with somebody I love, very supporting them. I have these great things in my life. And despite all I've been through, I have a pretty good physical health. And realizing what I can do, what I want to in my life, I made that choice to live. And that was the first step in my connection with Christ. All of a sudden, I had a mentor when I was in Pacific Shores, the substance abuse facility in California. And he was a minister. But he had struggled with a heroin addiction. And I know God put him in my life at that point. He could connect with me and understand. And we would pray. And the tears would roll. And I felt God in my life. I felt so spiritually connected. And I've never felt that way before in my life. And I know that's been critical for me to be where I'm at today. AA is wonderful. It's a good piece for me. Mental health is a piece for me. Gym, being physical, is a big piece for me. But ultimately, the piece that had been missing was Christ. And for me, that's the biggest part. So,
Yeah.
I hope that answers what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's interesting because, I think that there's a lot of people that, and I'm going to kind of just paint this a little bit, but I think there's a lot of people that don't believe that I can be mad at God and don't believe that I can have a very frank discussion with God. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what God wants, right? Is bring it to me and lay it all out. Even if you fight with me, even if you are mad at me, even he wants that rawness and that, that ability to bare your heart, bare your soul, and lay it all out and let him sort it out, right? And that's I think a critical piece, because like I wrote a letter to God, about my dad and a bunch of different things, and I pretty much laid everything out. And once you get it out there, and you can kind of feel, you can kind of think it, but unless it comes out, then you don't really get, for me, you don't really get that therapeutic effect. And that was an interesting piece, is that correlation there. So we got connected with you in late 22 or early 23, somewhere around in there.
Yes.
And
23.
kind of in there, I know you had some counseling, and I think you had mentioned it would kind of ebb and flow, and you do pretty good, and then it would fall off the bottom, and then it would do pretty good, and different things. How did you determine in your head, I really want to get helped? Because that's such a critical piece for somebody to draw that line in the sand and say, okay, I've had enough of this. Now I'm going to put in the work, and I'm going to do the effort in order to change. How'd that work for you?
So before I met you guys that year, I had actually went to sought treatment for substance abuse and went to a program for 45 days, and had been sober, stayed sober for maybe 6 months. But I did no work. Again, I went back to working.
Mhm.
I went back to the psychiatrist just prescribing. I was working with AA. I was working with a Christian mentor. But as I put relationships, work, everything became more important than me. Again, it goes back to ignorance and ego. Ignorant of, if you do that, you will fail. And my ego thinking, that's for other people, I can handle it. Ego and ignorance was a reoccurring theme for me. So I'd wanted to be sober. And I realized after I tried to get sober, I really wanted to get sober at that time. I had good career opportunities. My personal life, romantic life was shaping in a way that I had never had before. So things were going in a positive direction. I just didn't understand what God's timeline is. Travis's timeline is right now. And forcing. I don't care what I've got to do. I'll work 24/7 to make my way. Mm-hmm. My way is the way it's supposed to be. I didn't understand. That's what I did. And ultimately, panic attacks, the nightmare, everything came back to full bear. So again, I started drinking to medicate. And after, as I told you before, the attempt to get sober on my own, not understanding the withdrawal, specifically from benzodiazepines, I was on a heavy prescription dose. By the time I woke up, I'd been in a coma for 5 days, I believe, and strapped to a bed, intubated on a ventilator, just at such a frightening bottom. Mm-hmm. And I'm still alive. Mm-hmm. And angry at God because why won't you just let me die? Mm-hmm. I won't. I didn't understand. But I didn't want to live that way anymore. And I knew I just didn't want to live that way anymore. And I wanted help. But at that point, I still wasn't connected with God. I still didn't understand fully what I needed to do, but I was willing. And having some hope with people in my life. When my girlfriend found you guys, I found somebody that cared and wanted to give me help. And when I would talk to Matt understood the vulnerability and what it takes to ask for help is not easy. But when I had that trach, I felt hideously disfigured. Couldn't do. I wasn't the physical person. I had no voice. Going from this booming command voice to barely whisper. Being next to you and have to write notes so you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a bottom for me in my life. And I knew if God wasn't going to let me die, I didn't want to live like that. And that began the journey. As you know, you guys struggled for months. I was in and out of the hospital constantly because with the tracheostomy, I required a higher level of care. And we would call and call. We don't have to get into the VA. The VA was beyond not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It was been a nightmare for me trying to use the VA. Nobody knew what to do when somebody needed tracheostomy. I could be in a wheelchair and go, but the higher level of care was something we had to struggle with. And my life was, oh God, it was a mess. Such a mess between the time we met and the time I finally got to treatment. Those few months, it was bad, but I realized it's my belief that God put me through that. And He allowed me to live through it, to grow, come out stronger, and be where I am today, to use me to help others. And I don't know much, but I believe that's my purpose now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As Mark Jordan says, you turn your message, or you turn your messes into your message.
That's
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you laid it out, right? From a booming voice to barely a whisper to having a tracheostomy and being in a bed. And, there's probably nothing more humbling than that at that point in time in your life to then bring you to where you are now. And, we're so grateful and thankful for Pacific Shores and Laura and the team out in California that, you I would check in on you and I was like, okay, I guess this month will be the month. And then nope, we're going to extend and we're going to extend. And I think you were about 9 months total at
Yes.
the facility, which is fantastic because look where you are now. So
Yeah.
let's fast forward. What are you doing now? Where are you at? What's going on?
So came back from California around Christmas time last year.
Mhm.
And a man I got to know through phone calls and emails. He has a call center in Boca Raton. And what he does is he gets people to treatment, matches need, insurance
Mhm.
with what can fit them best. And he's been doing that for about 9 years, among other things. But he is not an addict or an alcoholic, But seeing the process, and it's unfortunate that a lot of facilities are just there for a profit, and not there ultimately to help people get sober. And he's seen, from his perspective, really good, really bad. So he and some others helped a group of investors to start a substance abuse facility for rehabilitation, and do it what they believe is the right way, and ultimately to provide that help and sobriety for people. So I went to visit and was there. They started rescuing abused and neglected horses. I grew up, my father had horses, so he needed somebody that had some familiarity. So I went down, beautiful, beautiful place. And so I stayed there for about 6 weeks, and rescuing. Every week we get a couple, and these guys were in bad shape, just bones sticking out, scared of their own shadow. And I mean, I spent so much time, like hours and hours every day, getting them comfortable, getting them to trust me, feeding them, getting their nutrition right. And I can't explain it, but it helps me so much. We're going to use them for equine therapy, and I've never done it, don't know anything about it, but I know nursing and getting to know their personalities, and being a part of that was a wonderful thing for me. And God knows I love those horses. This place had been, it's a huge log cabin. There's a farmhouse in the back. Anyway, beautiful place, but required a lot of remodeling because turning it into a facility is a commercial thing. So we had to go from residential specs to commercial. And he asked me if I would help with that. So I helped facilitate that, and that's been a big part of what I've been doing. And then wasn't sure where we were going to go, if I was going to stay on in a capacity. And a month ago, they asked me to stay on as the director of operations when we open in August. So that's what I'm doing now, down there building a sober community, so I can bring that to bear when we open and have those resources. I have a church there. The pastor does a lot of work in recovery, huge supporters of what we've got going on. So building that faith and that sober community has been a huge part of what I'm doing as we go forward and open our doors really soon.
So give them a big shout out. What's the name? Where are they located? How did they get to them? What's all that? Can you share that yet?
Again, it's Ingrained Recovery. You can find on Facebook or ingrainedrecovery.com. Right now, you can go and it'll show you pictures of the facility, give you the mission, the description of what we want to do. We're continuing to refine the website. Because we have a sustainment plan that we're going to implement, and I'm so excited about it. But it's going to be about a year probably before we're at that level. But there's a number and contact there that takes you to our call center, and if you need help, all you got to do is click and call. People are there 24/7. What I do is I'm available basically as the military liaison, for lack of better terms, when we get military guys, and it's normal to be hesitant to seek treatment and not want to. In other words, I can't be gone for 30 days. I can't be gone for 6 months. I can't. So I've actually spoken to multiple soldiers coming to therapy and for treatment, sharing my story and how much I understand where they are. I was right there for a long time. And even talked to one commander who I was able to connect with because I understand his constraints. Because obviously as a commander, I had to send people to our treatment program as well before I was the one needing treatment. So being able to connect that way and support is a large part of what I do right now.
And we'll make sure that all the information is in the podcast, to reach out and things. So, Travis, as you look back on kind of, let's take the last 10 years, right? From 15 on has been, all over the map, and you went through kind of the gambit, right? You wanted to stay in the military, but you got boarded out. The transition was faster than you ever possibly thought it could happen. And then, life goes on and the like. What is it that you can tell others who find themselves in kind of that boat of disbelief? I know something's weird, but I don't know what. What do you tell them? How do we get it so it doesn't, what happened to us doesn't happen to them?
What I would say is obviously being able to share my stories, they understand. I do know where they're coming from, and letting them know, don't put your life off, and being your absolute best is what you want to give to the loved ones in your life. And until you process and get the help you need, you can't be the person that we all want to be for ourselves, for God, for our loved ones, our significant others. Putting that off, it's not going to get better. And I'm an example, it will only get worse. Life is too important. God has plans for all of us. And we need to make ourselves humble enough and vulnerable enough and ask God for that strength or the vulnerability. I didn't understand. It took way more strength for me to be vulnerable enough to look at you and say, "Matt, I need help. Please help me. I don't know what to do." And it is hard. It's hard to say right now. But I had to.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of humbling for God to get me to understand who He wanted me to be. And I'm working real hard to be that.
Yeah. And I think the other part of that, right, is finding your tribe. Because I know there's times you came to me and was like, dude, I don't want to do any of this. And I'm good. Just there's other people. And no, it's making sure you have those people that have your best interest in heart and in sight, even when you don't have it for yourself. Right. So you've always been others first. I'll pick up the rear. Whatever's left is good enough. And that's, I think, a key part of it is you can't be your best for others unless you're your best for yourself. And that's the critical key takeaway right there from my understanding of your message.
Oh, absolutely. And I would tell you that it takes so much to understand that.
Yeah.
And I would hope nobody has to be humbled to the level I was to realize that. But my story's here, and I'll share it with anybody. The shame, the beating. I'm glad, and hopefully you'll see you don't have to go that far. It doesn't have to get that bad.
Yep. Well, as I said earlier, right, you are a success story, right? The lowest of lows. Look where you are now. And the beauty of it is you have that message to tell to others so they don't have to go through all of that in which you have. And you can help steer them in that direction. So that's a key component right there.
It's the ripple effect.
You and I learn together. It's if we can get me to therapy and be successful, we can do a lot for people.
That is true. It's been interesting as I sit back and see where you were 2 years ago and where you are now, and the work that you put in, and flying back and forth and doing surgeries and going through those grueling aspects of things, but all with the end mission to be your best self. And you've stayed true to that. So congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Any last comments? Any parting words of wisdom?
You gave me a thought as we were talking. To people out there that are mentoring others to bring to Christ, remember, some of us have a Louisiana public education, and we need some details. You may have to slow down. We want to get there, and it may take some time. Be patient with us.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. Well, we thank you so much for spending time with us. And we'll make sure that we have the information to the facility out with the chat. And, I know you are going to continue to do great things. You're going to continue to change people's lives. And that right there is what it's about from that standpoint. And I know you know that. So thank you so much for being here, brother.
Absolutely.